ones for us to try. So I'm going to start prone, which means front side of the body down. So if you're able to do that, you can come down, and if you want to have like a blanket roll underneath your hips, you could try that. I'm going to start with my left arm perpendicular and have my forehead down on my forearm. So you see my right arm is then kind of tucked in. It could be there. It could also be back next to you with your shoulder rounded in. Just give yourself a moment to rock your head into your arm. And push your forehead down into your arm. And you might even take little subtle movements through your pelvis while you're doing all of this. See if you can take a few deep breaths where your stomach pushes down into the ground. You can feel that grounded connection to the earth, whether or not you're just on the floor somewhere or the actual earth. So you might stay here for a while. I've been needing to do this a lot more lately in the winter time. So then your right arm could come out to the side if you're ready to move and shift a little bit. And sometimes this is called broken wing. I don't know. There's a lot of names for this. But I'm going to take my right arm straight out from the shoulder, palm facing down. Take my left hand out to the left and use the floor to help secure myself with my right side of the head down to roll into the right hip. Now, even just doing that could be enough, but I'm going to let my left knee lift up into the air and use my left toes to stabilize and act as a sort of lever for me to pulse a little bit side to side. And then there might be a spot that you just hold still with. Okay, coming back to center, I'm going to switch sides, take my right arm now underneath my forehead, take my left arm either tucked in or back alongside the body. And you might take a little bit of pelvic tilts or pelvic shifting. Maybe press your forehead down into your arms. Take a couple deep, attentive breaths so your stomach can push down into the ground. And again, you might really just need this, and you could stay here, but if you want to take the left arm straight out to the left, right hand out to the right, you can roll into your left side of the body. So I like to keep my head down. It's up to you. So again, you might just do this. You don't have to pick up the right knee, but you could do that and use the right toes connected to the ground to help adjust and rock and massage to your liking. All right, then we're going to come back to center from here. I'm going to take a moment in Sphinx on the elbows. We're going to move now through a low cobra thing that I was trying. So this time of the year, Aquarius season, the area of the body associated with this sign is the lower legs. So everything from the knee down. knee to ankles. And then the next month will be the feet. Okay, so we're bringing our focus there. Hands come next to you, elbows bent, like you're about to take a cobra pose. But from here, go ahead and see if you can drop your chin and press your knees down firm. So when I press my knees down, my pelvis might lift up a little bit. Your butt might lift up just a little bit. And then maybe even your feet float up. So it could be subtle, or you could even float your feet up as high as you want, or you press your hands down as well. Then press your feet down, let go of the knees pressing down, press the tops of the feet down and down into your hands to lift your chest. So we're gonna pulse like that, press down through the knees, maybe float the feet up, and then press down through the feet and lift the chest. You don't have to go this fast with it. You just start to build a bit of your own rhythm. You can flow with however your breath wants to find rhythm. And then from here, come back to your Sphinx pose, up on your elbows. You can have your fingers laced like that. You can have your elbows more or less under your shoulders. And I'm going to take my right toes and curl the toes under. So even with socks on, you can do this. But if you prefer taking your socks off and having more grip, you can also try that. But I'm going to curl the right toes under. So my right knee is engaging the thigh muscles. And then I'm gonna let the right heel rock from side to side. And it's up to you how engaged you are. You could be really pressing down firm through the elbows. How much you're gonna rock through the foot like this. And then we're gonna switch sides. In between sides, if you need to give your hips a moment, you could press down through both knees just to kind of realign and then release. Curl the left toes under. So if you need to kind of lift your hips up and get the toes under as much as you can, you might feel a big stretch through the calf muscle on the back of the knee. And then once you've got that secure, rock the heel, the ankle, side to side. And in all of these shapes, the suggestion is just always to observe, just to think about and sense whatever's going on for you, physically, mentally, and emotionally. All right, from here, release, maybe tap your feet into the ground. Maybe lift both hips up, pressing your knees down, and then release. All right, take your hands out wide, wide, wide off your mat. The claw hands, perhaps. Elbows might be lifted up. And from here, we're gonna come up into a cobra, a high cobra. So getting up a little higher, your hands are wider. You start to notice that extension of the spine and how much you're able to lift up into this back bend without judgment, because each day it's going to be a little different. Lowering down and then pressing back up. So maybe you just do 1 or 2. If you want to try more like 4 to 6 of these. Whatever feels good to you. Then I'm going to take my hands closer in to press up to table. I'll walk the knees in. from table, I'm going to round the back for cat pose and hold there. After a couple rounds of breath holding this cat pose, now we're flexing the spine. I'm gonna suggest sinking back to child's pose and then coming forward to your cat. So we're not going to go into the extension of the spine at all. We're just going to take these rocking from cat to child's pose. So keeping your pelvis tucked under more or less, right? As much as you're able. And then settle into your child's pose and just rest in it. And so sometimes, depending on your body, your child's pose might bring your spine into a little more of extension again after the flexion, depending on how your pelvis, your hips, and everything is going mobility-wise. So you might take your knees wider if you want. You can find any stretch through your child's pose that you'd like. And then I'm going to suggest coming up to table. So now coming to your table pose, where your hands and knees are underneath you in a way that feels steady for your body. Go ahead and take your arm raises. So for me, I share this pretty much every practice. So if you're new to what I'm sharing, these are called lateral arm raises. So I'm going to take my right arm out to the right, up, as high as it wants to go, maybe hold it for a moment, and then float back down. Left arm straight to the left and up. Same thing. And your hips can move with you, and you can do this as many times as it feels good until you feel like you're warmed up in this region and opened up, checking in, all that stuff. All right, from here, I'm going to take the right toes again. You know what? I'm going to take my socks off because we're going to do more curling the toes under. I just feel like I appreciate this sort of stretch more without my socks on. Okay. So from table, I'm going to take my right leg back and curl the toes under and just really press down firm into both hands like you would for a push-up almost, and stretch back through that right foot. Sometimes the opposite knee might float up for a moment. And then from there, come forward and lift the back leg up. Rock back, a few bounces, maybe even lift the knee up. And then drop the bottom knee down and lift the leg up, hip height. So do this maybe 4 to 6 times. And then we're going to switch sides. Now in between sides though, since we have a lot of load on the wrists, you might want to either flip your wrists and stretch them out that way, or you could stand up on your knees and shake your wrists out, take some figure eights. So you could also be doing this whole exercise up on your fingertips, on your fists, any way that feels comfortable. So I'm going to take the left leg back and first just spread out the amount of load and force that I'm putting into both hands to really stretch back through that left calf, heel, foot. And maybe pulse and bounce a little bit, lifting the right knee up. That's getting us prepared. Dropping the bottom knee down, then I'm going to lift the chest just a little bit while the left leg comes up and lower down. Calf bounce, left leg lifts. Calf bounce, and left leg lifts. Do it a few more times. Okay, release. From here, we're going to come to downward facing dog just for a moment. So stretching back, trying to spread out the amount of force you're putting into your feet and your hands. Moving wherever it feels good, taking attentive breath. And then one thing you could do is a roll up from here. So you can walk your hands to your feet, press your feet firm, let your arms kind of hang, or you could hold one hand into the other, and then slowly roll up so that your chin is the last thing to lift. If you don't want to do that, you could, from downward facing dog, just drop back to your knees. And then you could either sit back on your heels and take some more wrist shaking out, or you could stand up on your knees and do some circles through the hips. The last thing I'm gonna have us do is come into our seat and prepare for reverse table, also known as crab. So before going there, take your hands to the back of your legs and take a moment just to press your thumb into your calf and just kind of rock it out like this. I like to go fast with it and just go up and down. Switch sides. So this is an area of the body that I was neglecting for a little while during the pandemic. I talked about that, I think, before, and trying to pay more attention to my poor calves and ankles and shins, because everything affects the other, right? Chain reaction throughout the body. All right, from here, if you reverse table, it's similar to table where you want to try to figure out where your hands and feet are going to be located, where you'll feel steady when you lift your hips up. Okay, so I like to have my fingertips pointing in as I lift my hips up. So you want to just take a few moments to come in and out of that with your hands facing different ways and your feet finding different placements until you feel secure. Once you've found that, we're going to move through a few more pulses, kind of similar to what I was having us do in Cobra and Sphinx earlier. All right, so I'm going to start with my the balls of the feet and the toes flexed. So I'm going to keep my toes lifted. I don't know if you can see that in the video. And I'm going to press, as I'm lifting my hips, I'm going to press down into the balls of the feet, keeping the toes lifted. And then the higher my hips get, then I'm going to transition the load into the toes and lift my heels up as I keep getting higher through my torso and maybe drop my head back. Pause there for as long as it feels okay, and then begin that slow shift down. So I'm going to start to drop my heels. As my hips lower, my heels are going to come to the ground and my toes are going to stay lifted. And then you can even rock the feet all the way up like this. So real flexion through the ankles. So let's try that again. Lift the hips. As you're lifting the hips, transition that load forward into the feet. Use your heels lifting, stretching through the ankle. And then slow shift back down. Once your seat touches the ground, really bringing the ankles back and lifting the toes. So maybe twice was enough, especially if you've never done that before. Maybe your wrists are starting to bother you. So all sorts of things you can adjust as needed, and maybe just try this again and go a little faster with it at another time in the day. It's the beauty of some of these things. You can get creative, try your own spin on them. Try them while you're watching something or listening to a podcast or an audiobook. And then release. So that's it for you today. I always suggest taking time to rest. So if after that you have 5 minutes, even if you just have 2 minutes, really, lay down in a constructive rest position. I'm in my living room. If you're in your living room, you could take your legs up your couch, take a little shavasana or meditation, turn off your audiobooks and your podcasts and all your things, and bring that focus inward. I'm working on that too. I'm working on staying positive. I love and miss all of you, and